Okay, I gotta ask you something. So, have you ever found yourself in a very uncomfortable position and you turn to ChatGPT or Claude to get the answers? And you read it and you thought it was really, really useful. But then now you're starting to use it for every single thing. Do you think that you're outsourcing your social intelligence, your emotions to a machine? And why is it that you're really, really doing that? So here's the thing, I do not want to give it away yet, but I want to invite you to this week's conversation with Lillian. Although we took it from a professional perspective, we spoke about emotions in the corporate environment. And I wanted her insights, her years of wisdom, and how and where is it going currently. And I was surprised by some of the things she shared. I'm not going to let more than that out of this week's conversation, but I am interested at the end of it all. What are your thoughts around it? And before we dive in, be sure you've hit subscribe and enjoy this week's episode. Introduce who you are. People are messy. We are not methodologies. We're not checklists.
No.
And yet, we are so in love with efficiency.
Yes.
Okay. So I just don't know where to start this unpacking. First, tell me, how long have you been doing change management? Because I think that would give us some context to why we're talking about, our messiness.
Yeah. I've been doing it formally with a methodology for 10 plus years now.
Okay.
A little over 10 years. But I've been doing it my whole career. So that's 35 plus years. It just didn't have that name back then when I started to realize that, hey, asking my team to do something and having them struggle with change that I was trying to introduce or that the company was trying to introduce, I didn't know that it had a name. I thought that the name was having stress. I thought that the name was you need a leadership training. I thought that the name was better project management. So it's been a while that I've been fascinated with our capability to endure change at the speed that is now required from us.
I find it so ironic. I almost think that sometimes my podcasts start preparing me before we get on these calls. And not many people know that sometimes we get on these calls and they're not going to go according to our conversations, right? And so over the weekend, I was at a panel discussion at Halt University here in Dubai. And it was fascinating, this panel discussion. And one of the things that, we weren't really talking about it. I feel like we were avoiding it, which was about speed. AI is doing this and AI has been doing that. And the confusion between predictive and generative AI, because I think that does play a difference in change as well. And so we were going through these conversations, and the only thing that really struck out for me is what you're saying. The speed that tech is coming out with and the speed for us to keep up, I almost feel like I'm being forced to keep up, but I do not see the benefits of efficiency. Being faster is better. Mm-hmm. And a couple of days prior to that, I saw another panel discussion. How does AI role be in everyday's business conversations? And again, it was like, from a business perspective, everyone's like, oh my God, it's going to save so much time and it's going to save cost. And I was like, you're almost making people feel like they have no significance. So what does that really do in change management? So you're talking about this, and I need you to really break this down, because you're defining change management in one way, and today you're saying it's going into another way. Please enlighten someone like me who doesn't know that much.
Well, For a couple of years now, I think at least for the last three congresses that I've been through to, there has been this fascination, this focus, this, hey, let's do this new thing that is combining coaching with change management. Now, if you think about it, it's ironic that we think that that is new, that we're doing something new, and that this is what we're bringing in. Because if change management is about people, haven't we been coaching all along? Why is introducing coaching something new? Why is introducing coaching something that is, hey, you need to pay attention to this. This is something that you need to do. Hey, let's add it to the checklist. It should have been there from the get-go, because you're dealing with, again, the whole premise of change management was the people side of a project, the people side of a transition, the people side of a change.
So where does the emotions? Okay, I'm trying to imagine a scenario in my head of what you're trying to share. Like, okay, I'm in there. I thought coaching is, well, I think practically everybody should just do it as a skill. That's my personal opinion, but we're not going to go through that one. So I'm trying to imagine a scenario of change management currently. And you're saying change is methodology, checklist, and people are messy. Okay, we're going back to this premise on this one. So, and now they're saying it needs coaching, but who needs coaching and why? I mean, if coaching is always there, I'm like, I don't understand where the newness is.
Coaching didn't used to be there.
In change management.
No. See, and look at your face, which is weird, right?
Exactly. No, yeah, it's not, that's why I'm having a hard time trying to maybe understand what you're trying to say. Because for me, I mean, I work with unpredictability, uncertainty, and all of that is change.
Yes.
And I'm not a coach, but I use the skills of it. So to me, how can you not have coaching in a coach, in a company going to change management? It just this doesn't make sense to me. So I'm having a hard time when you're saying that it's new. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It used to be, and bear in mind, new is relative. So for the past few years, it has been going on, and ACMP is doing work together with ICF.
What is ANCP? You have to remember our listeners.
ACMP is the Global Association of Change Management Practitioners.
Okay.
Awesome organization, and ICF is the organization of coaches.
Okay, got it.
It's the International Coaching Federation. Now, if I look, and I'm on the forums in the ACMP Connect fairly regularly. You see a lot of conversations regarding, hey, how do you integrate coaching in a way that is natural? How do you bring the coaching conversations? But it used to be, at least in the environments that I was working in, that we come in as change managers and we say, hey, this is all the steps that we're doing. We need to create awareness. We need the sponsors to create a coalition. We need them to be there. We need them to engage people. We need this, we need that. And oftentimes we would look at the leaders, because really they need to lead that change. It's not us.
Of course.
We would look at the leaders and we would give them basic understanding of, hey, this is what change look like. This is the individual trajectory that your people will be going through. Hey, you need to pay attention to resistance management. Nice word that we like.
Yeah.
Pay attention to resistance management. Pay attention to if your people have transitioned from awareness to desire, if they have knowledge. Look at the communication, look at the change plan. What we're seeing now is that is a form of coaching. You're giving them tools regarding change leadership, but you're not really touching, and I'm going to say the dirty word, you're not really touching emotions when you're dealing with a leader and when you're dealing with a team. You give them all these, for lack of a better word, service level tools, but you're not telling them at any point in time, hey, your team is going to have emotions regarding this. And how are you going to recognize that emotion and deal with that emotion? We coach it in, or we use words like there will be resistance management. Now, it's a word that I have hated from the beginning, and we're starting to hate it in the community. Because
what is resistance management in your definition?
And what resistance is information. If someone is resisting whatever you're trying to get them to do, and you're seeing that resistance in whatever form, it's just information. And the coaching that is coming in now is to say to leaders, this is just information. If you see somebody fuming, if you see whatever, it's information. So we have to take that information and deal with it. I have you were asking, how do you look at a scenario? I'm trying to imagine a scenario. I have a very funny one that shows this. I had this leader coming into a group. I think the group was around 8 to 9 people. And she was coming in new, young girl, very brilliant, so hired by management for her strategic insight. And she had to reorganize the department to align the department with the strategic change that management was doing. So came in, brilliant, working in a department where people had been there for 12 years, 15 years. So already there was a sense of, okay, what are you, young person, coming to tell us who've been here for a while?
Okay, and to add to this perspective, this is in the Caribbean, because I'm a firm believer of cultural...
Yes. Emotion. Of culture, yes.
Okay, all right, go on. Sorry.
In the Caribbean, she's here doing the work and having guidance. It wasn't called change management, but she was having guidance in, hey, take it easy. These people need to, get accustomed to where we're going. So be sure that you give the new message about the new strategy, 7x7, all those great things that we talk about.
The checklist and methodology.
This checklist and the methodology. So it was going good. She had struggles, but okay, it was going fairly good. And then there came a day, a week, or whatever, that everything derailed. And she was having the passive aggressive became just aggressive, and she was like flabbergasted. She didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And she was like, nothing really changed in that week. And we were having a conversation. It wasn't my client, so we were just having a friends who know each other conversation. And she was like, I don't know what happened, because this wasn't even the week that we introduced the hardest parts of the change. And I pressed, what did you do? What happened when you came in? Blah, blah, blah. And in the end, what she told me was she changed the seating of the people.
Oh, that's big. That's huge. I think we should just give context, because everybody's from around the world. All right, give I get it, but let's break it down. Why is seating so important?
And what, okay, let me preface this. I'm not going to say seating from a Caribbean perspective is important, because it is. And you know that you come from the Caribbean. We are very attached to our location. We make our desks into this whole island and whatever. But here's what I told her in the moment. She said, okay, now that you've been, pressuring me to think about everything, not just something related to the change, everything that changed in that week, I changed the seating. And so I told her, okay, go back and ask, what is it regarding the seating change that triggered? Do you have even one person in there? Ask what triggered them. Don't assume. I said, I can tell it to you, like, hey, they're territorial or whatever, but don't take it from me. Go ask what it is that triggered. And so she went and asked. The first person told her, well, you did it without telling us anything. So on Monday, we came in and the seats were changed. And so we didn't have a chance to prepare and whatever. And she immediately got defensive. And she was like, well, I was trying to be efficient. And the person said, yes, I understand that. You're trying to be efficient to do it in the weekends, but you blindsided us. And that little bit of being blindsided by you during the weekend, coupled with the fact that you're new and young, triggered our trust issues with you. So that was one.
Almost like she had a missing. To me, I'm listening to what you're saying. Say, I work with resistance, right? So for me, that is actually juicy. I would do that. I would go in, not give in. And I did do that. I did that at a conference recently. I walked in and said, right, let's change the chairs. And everybody was, and it was in the Caribbean. Everybody was like, why? But I did mention to them why we did that.
Uh-huh.
And to me, it sounds like she's missed that to make the room feel safe again. I don't think that the room wasn't preparing beforehand. It was about, why are we doing this? For some safety. So it's the emotions, as you said.
It's completely about the emotions. And that's why this isn't a checklist, because it's the specific circumstance that you're in. She was stacking one thing upon the other. Yeah. So she was already new in the company. They already had to get accustomed to her. Then came that there was a big age gap between her and the rest of the team, and there was a gap in seniority in the sense that she was only 1 year within the company and they were there 15 plus years. So there was that. They already had to get accustomed to this new transition that management was doing, but she was the face of it. And so you can't look at the change of the desks as an isolated thing. It's stacked on top of all of
layers. Yeah.
Yes.
It is stacked on layers.
And that's when it becomes a thing. And that's where it's, you have to take into consideration.
But she was a change manager or she was a coach? Because now I'm going back to this where we started.
She was just a leader. She was just a leader with advisors that were telling her what she needed to do regarding the transition, what she needed to do regarding the strategy.
So was it this?
In her mind, a change of seat? Not important. Totally not important. Didn't have anything to do with the strategy, with the transition or anything.
But she also missed it. It goes back to what you were saying, like, people are messy.
Yes.
Right. So what I'm getting from this is like, people are messy because the change is actually in the nuances.
Yes.
And I'm a big advocate of this. I tell people, please pause. I'm about strategically pausing here.
Yes.
Because you need to read the room. I
Yeah.
don't care how much AI and technology is going to come in. If you fundamentally go back to efficiency and you're trying to be efficient, but you can't read the room, you're not efficient. You're wasting money, to be honest. But, you know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, profitability, right?
Yeah.
So you said, okay, I get it. So this was a leader who missed the opportunity. And then I remember just a while back, you said coaching is new to change management. So where in this does coaching have to be? Why was coaching missing from this when it was always should have been there from the beginning?
If she, because we don't think it's important. We think that if we tell leaders the steps that they need to take, if we tell them the communication plan, if we tell them the stakeholder heat map, if we tell them about the possible risks and how to manage those, that's enough. We don't
Checks,
tell
check,
the
checks and methodologies.
checklist. Yes. We don't equip our leaders to, exactly like you said, hey, pause. When you see emotion, and in this case, she saw a team become frustrated, and in her mind, it was from day one to day two, like seemingly out of the blue. Stop and investigate. And we don't give them the tools to, okay, how do I investigate? How do I go in and say, okay, what is it? What happened? I saw this or I felt this. Where did the disconnect happen? So in this lady specific case, she came back to me and she was like, I know it. They said it. I did this. I didn't tell them beforehand. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to tell them, I'm sorry. I should have told you before, but okay, this is it now. And then it should be fixed. The first thing that I asked her was, okay, you talk to one person. You have a team of, I think she had a team of around 8 to 10 people. Do you know that this is the only thing?
Yeah.
If you only talk to one.
It's a logical question.
Yeah.
I think.
Yes. But these are all the things that coaching would tell her. Don't just, go for efficiency. Okay, I talked to one. The thing that they brought up seems logical to me. Okay, I missed it. I'm going to go in and say, hey, sorry, I missed it. And that's the end of it. No, you have to dig a little deeper, especially if you realize that this brought about so many emotions. When something that is seemingly innocent brings about so many emotions, the stop that you need to do, the pause that you need to do has to be longer, because you really have to go in there and see, okay, what was triggered? Something was triggered.
It's amazing how you debunk my mind in so many ways. I'm going to tell you why. First of all, I thought, to me, what seemed common sense, which is this conversation, I thought that was already implemented already into the system. These are leaders having this understanding, because there's so much information out there. Leaders understanding that emotions play a role. And also data backed, science backed. People never make decisions from logic, as much as we think that is the case.
It is.
Even leaders make decisions from emotions.
Yes.
So to me, what you're telling me that leaders are still not acknowledging emotions, I'm like, how is that even possible? I mean, there's some level of self-awareness. You know what I mean by self-awareness, that I myself have emotions. I myself go through something. So therefore, just for a moment going, okay, I could go through this as a struggle. I know I'm trying to avoid the word empathy on this one because I know it gets into sympathy, but really it's like really analyzing or observing and going, okay, if I could, if would I go through this, what would I be facing? And then pivoting it over and asking questions, as you rightfully said. So I'm lost. I'm surprised. I'm not lost. I'm surprised.
Um, you know what I think it is, and this is just based no science, just me looking at my career and what I've seen during 35 years. We are emotional beings, but somehow we've convinced ourselves that when we get in the workplace, we can leave the emotions at the door. And there's this different corporate version of us where emotions don't play a role. The little bit that you just said, we make decisions based on emotions. Do you know how many leaders like really bristle when I say that? They're like, no, I do. I do. Other people
Don't.
But but other people don't. But I'm completely rational. None of us are.
No.
If you have blood running to your veins, you're not.
I'm sorry, I can't. I'm just like, I didn't think I was going to have this conversation because all of this, what you're saying to me, I was like, oh, but it's done. It's common sense now. But it's not. You're just saying it's the opposite. And I'm just wondering.
And you know what I find fascinating? That now there are all these methodologies are now coming up to bring
checklist.
Yes, and checklists to bring emotion back in the workplace.
How? But if you're saying, which I agree with, people are messy. If there's one thing I have diligently fought for is that stop doing one by one or boxing people in there.
Yep.
Just that can never work.
Yes.
So how can you even checklist emotions? I mean,
well,
and AI, not even AI.
Oh, but people try it with AI even.
I get it.
They will go to their ChatGPT and say, hey, I saw Kirti rolling her eyes. What do you think that it means? What emotions might she be having?
With no context.
With no context.
And no accountability.
You know, the first time that somebody told me that it did that, I had like a, what now? I couldn't. And to me, it was like, why didn't you ask Kirti? When you saw her rolling her eyes, why didn't you say, hey, I'm seeing you rolling your eyes. What's going on? And that didn't come up in their minds. What came up in their minds was, oh, shit, if I had my mobile with me, I could have ChatGPT it immediately. Now I have to go to my desk and do it after the meeting. And I was like, she's right there. She's rolling her eyes right there. So, but yeah.
You're outsourcing your trust.
Yes.
You're outsourcing your self-trust. I mean, for me, I have heard about this because there's like these, I watch comedy on Instagram. The only scrolls is comedy. And there was this couple that was married. And I'm like, married? Okay. She walks out of the door and she's like, he said, good morning. And what shall I do next? And then and he goes, she just replied, her face does this and this and this. What shall I offer next? And I'm like, yes. Right, but you know what? I'm laughing about this.
You laugh about it,
but it's actually happening in this world. And I'm just thinking, you know, and I have this thing where maybe it's marketing needs a bit of regulation, but it's the way we are being told that AI is more intelligent than we are. That's one. And so therefore, be less with your self-trust. Go and get dependent. It's almost like a drug. Go get dependent on AI for every little decision. And what you're asking is like, you could have just asked the person.
Exactly. And so what is happening now, to come back to your question regarding, okay, how are we doing that with methodology? We are giving people steps to talk about emotion. And I'm not per se against the same thing as change management. I'm not against the methodology. The methodology is great. It gives you a framework. It gives you something to build on. But what I tell people is you have a gut for a reason. You have perception of, your visual perception, your hearing perception, whatever. You have it for a reason. You need to hone those. If you are using tools to, for instance, broaden your language, say, for instance, the only feelings that you know are angry or happy, and you're using tools to get to know that, oh, okay, there is frustrated, there is, whatever. I'm fine.
Writing and readings are a really good source for
Yes, exactly. So I'm extremely fine with that. But then you need to go back to being human. You need to go back to listen to your gut. You need to go back to, there's something off in the tone that somebody's using.
Yeah.
You need to go back to, okay, why are we not making eye contact when we're having this conversation? That's what we need to go back to, at least for me.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I can't tell you enough when I have to do these workshops or talk to people about it. And they'll be like, yeah, it's common sense. I'm like, okay, how much are you doing it? And they'll be like, what do you mean? I was like, how much have you outsourced
Yep.
your confusion, your dilemma to somebody to give it to you efficiently, fast?
Mm-hmm.
But you haven't implemented it, because when you get to face somebody, it's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. Before last year, AR and VR, so augmented reality,
Yes.
virtual reality. Oh, Kirti, public speaking, we can do it with augmented reality and virtual reality. And I'm like, okay, but it's still not the same, because to some degree, you're able to control yours mentally. You're able to control yourself, knowing that that is fake. But when it's real, you have less control over it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's where the issue is that you haven't been able to regulate yourself maturely with your emotions. I don't think it's about emotional regulation, but maturing your relationship with it.
Yep.
And I thought that was just I didn't think it was at a leadership level. I didn't.
Yeah.
I honestly thought leaders would have understood, because you've broken maybe a bias or an assumption that you have the position you do because you are able to see the bigger picture. But that also means the deeper picture.
Well, okay. Think about everything that we've been talking about. The higher up leaders come, the more it's about efficiency. And we have now conditioned ourselves that whenever we think about efficiency, we equate it with being as less human as possible. So efficiency takes the land. Leaders very high up tend to think, okay, if something is efficient, there's no emotion involved. If something is efficient, we've automated it as much as possible. If something is efficient, it's happening without communication. While that's not the case, it's not a correlation, but it is an assumption that lives. And so I get high up. I want to think, hey, things are happening as efficient as possible. Going into the emotions of Lillian isn't efficient. I want to just tell her, hey, if we keep it to change, hey, this is the transition that I want to happen. We're at A, I want to be at B. Tell me when you're at B. And what then I will try to do is not tell you anything that stands in the way of getting to B, I try to just give you milestones of, hey, we're now 1 kilometer away from B.
Mhm.
We're now, so many paces away from B, and that's it. And everybody tries to ignore that the path from A to B is through emotions of the people who have to execute it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are a couple of things that are floating through my mind. I agree. I can now, I understand where you get at, where leadership will say, okay, I want it to be efficient. But to me, efficient can also by having one conversation, the right kind of, not right, but by right, I mean a purposeful, valuable, purpose driven conversation, asking the questions you may not want to ask can actually save you a heck of a lot of time than that big mistake you're going to make, costly mistake you're going to make. I needed to get a new product for it in the place of it because I was doing this change and I am now behind my deadline.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. But it's in the perception. The perception that it would be time consuming. And I think, and I do a disservice to leaders when I just say this without any type of context. What is also happening is that we don't talk about emotions enough in the workplace. And enough for me is not talking about emotion every day, all day. For me, enough is talking about emotions at the moments where it's
required.
Yes. And then it can be a 1 minute conversation. But what is now oftentimes happening is that we don't talk about it, it accumulates.
And then it's an unnecessary meeting of an hour of eyeball rolling, as far as I can see.
That's one. Or we get passive aggressive. If we're in the Caribbean, we get passive aggressive. We
everywhere.
Do passive aggressive as, nobody's business.
No, it's everywhere.
But then also you run the risk of when you want to go back and say, hey, okay, I missed something. Let me go now deal with the emotion, that there's a volcano that comes up. And then I have those leaders that told me, no, I spent a day listening to that emotional stuff. I'm drained. I'm not doing this again. Without
imagine one.
I'm not a therapist, Lillian. I'm not a therapist. I'm not doing this again. But
I do understand one thing, and I've had a gripe with this, is the word therapist, right? I think sometimes we've associated emotions, or it's been sold. It goes back to marketing. If you're constantly selling marketing as like, I'm a therapist, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to emotions, you, by just that label in itself, says me versus the rest of the world.
Yes.
And I've always said this, I've always had a gripe. And I think, no, individuals are, your mother was not a therapist, or your father wasn't a therapist, or your grandma wasn't. That one person that was full of compassion for you wasn't a therapist. So why are we... So I can imagine when you become a leader and you're supposedly reputation, you want to make sure you're in charge. You want to put your, saving face is huge around the world. I don't think it's just an Eastern culture thing.
Yes.
Right. So when you start we're not very aware of the words we use and how it affects us and how it affects the saving face. So to me, I get what those leaders, when they say that. I also agree with you on, we don't talk about it enough, but more than that, it's at the right moment.
At the right moment.
I agree with you on that because
then it doesn't have to be the whole day.
No, it doesn't. And increments like, was it Toyota that does Kaizen, that started the Kaizen model, where it's like the little increments make the biggest difference, right?
Yes.
Isn't that what's great for change as well? Change management?
Yes. Yes, of course. But now we have to, and then we go back to the beginning of the conversation. We have to teach those leaders. We have to coach, if you want to call it that. We have to coach them.
What do you think?
Yeah, we have to coach them into changing their perspective on what emotion is. Emotion is just information coming up. I don't need to stay stuck in that emotion. I need to look at what information is it giving me.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you on that. But I also think there's a missing link to it. But I don't know if you want to entertain my idea of it. But often when we get information, the way it's delivered, if we don't understand it, we resist it more. It comes down to articulation.
I agree with you. The only nuance that I would put there is if we don't realize that it's just coming from a different perspective than ours. Oftentimes we think that our perspective of the world, that's it. That's the way that the world works.
The 80% emotional side of seeing things, you mean?
Yeah. So
lens, okay.
Rather than saying I'm not understanding somebody, or I don't agree with somebody, I always try to look at it, okay, I might be looking at this from a different perspective. Help me to shift to where you are looking at it from. Because if I can shift, then number one, it's not right or wrong, what you're saying. It's just coming from a different era. And then I can shift my understanding. Sometimes not understanding somebody, it's not understanding where they're coming from. It's not understanding the perspective that they're taking.
Yeah. And I agree with you with that, because that's why I use the word understanding, because information, I think of it as the corporate jargon. When I have to write corporate writing, I hate it because I don't like it. I'm just like, that is just not me. Why do we need corporate jargon? Because, I have to type it out and I'll see big words that mean nothing.
Yeah.
And to me, that reflects how you treat people inside a company.
Yes.
Whereas if you just simplified it, had a conversation that's purpose driven, you'd probably save a shitload of money. Excuse me for saying the word shit in this, but I you know what I mean? And so, but it happens because when you have conversations that are not jargony, or like Zoom, I was going to say it in Dutch, like this is how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
You actually save you save time, you save money, you save energy, you reduce burnouts. I'm pretty sure you reduce those burnouts and you get things done. Why then? Why? And now moving into AI also, and you're using AI is going to pick up the same jargon. People are going to spend more time on it because they have to decipher it. And so you're going to get irritated by it. And then you're going to deliver that to your leader. So to me, I think we just made it more complex. Or have I mean, I'm exhausted just sharing this with you.
And I would be the wrong person to have this conversation with, because when leaders tell me, okay, my team feels off in a change management setting, what I usually do is cry and bitch sessions. But
that's a good thing, isn't it?
I used to coach it in jargon, because heaven forbid that I would say, hey, this is a cry and bitch session. But now I'm like, no, it is a cry and bitch session. I'm giving you the opportunity to let go of emotions.
So why are you the wrong person for me to say this to? I
Because
mean,
the older I get, the less I'm into corporate jargon. And so I now
ah,
have a disclaimer to people new who are trying to hire me. I'm like, no patience, no hormones left to do corporate jargon. I'm going to say it as it is. And if it's a cry and bitch session, I'm going to say, hey, welcome to my cry and bitch session. I'm not going
mhm.
to code it into this is a resistance management opportunity where I just no patience for it.
I could never subscribe to it. And I tell individuals, I mean, I do language management, I think half the time, because when I sit with conversations where you have the, well, to give the labels, the boomers, the millennials, the Gen X's, the Gen Z's, and I think the alphas now, getting to sit in a room, they see lens life through a different lens.
Yes.
Everybody comes in with an asset. Everybody
Yes.
comes in with an asset, right? But because we've been projected so much on the outside stimuli, that is what we're thinking. So when we think in that outside stimuli, and what comes out of our mouth is jargony,
Yes.
you already are putting a person in a burnout situation. Like a prescription to a burnout.
Yes.
Because, like you said, you think people leave their personality at the door, and that just doesn't happen.
No.
So, to me, I wonder if I don't know if it's you're saying no hormones, nothing, no hormones left. On I'm going to take what it is, but isn't what that is actually apt for today's world because of the speed, and we have to keep up with the speed?
If you ask me, yes, I'm going to say yes. We don't, change and transition doesn't really exist anymore because we are in constant change.
Yeah.
It's not as in a few years back where, hey, a company had one big change and that was it for the coming 5 years. No, it's constant. But with that constant also comes the change fatigue, also comes the
Yeah.
change saturation. And so, in my perspective, in order for you to deal with that change saturation, with the change fatigue, it's getting to the emotion of things and it's being honest about it. Be, I mean, if I'm angry that
Yeah.
this needs to happen. It doesn't mean that I will quit my job. It doesn't, sometimes we put consequences to emotions. No, an emotion is just that. It's okay, I'm angry. Okay, and then we can go look at, okay, what happened? What triggered this anger? And what can we do to shift to make it palatable or okay for you? It's not, we oftentimes want to get stuck in, oh, you're angry. What do you want to do now?
Yeah.
No, nothing. You're angry. What happened? What is it that triggered it? Were you angry since last week? What,
Go to the root before you get to the
yeah,
answer is what we always say.
yeah. But I do
So,
think to your point that we have to learn to do that. We have to learn to be human again if we want to keep up with the pace of what is happening.
remember when we met? I think it was 2 years ago or a year back, and
Yes.
no, 2 years ago. My
2
God,
years
time
ago.
flies. And I told you what I was doing, and I said to you, I said, I don't like woo things. I just have no. And I remember your entire face structure changed, and I was like, okay, it's a relief here.
Yes.
And I walked away from. It's not that I don't believe in it. I believe in sitting quietly. I believe in sitting with your discomforts and
Yes.
going through it. For me, that is how you change. You can't change with what you avoid, right?
Yes.
And in that moment, I remember thinking to myself, and I remember speaking to you about it, that there is so much money chucked at well-being, like mindfulness and meditation and yoga. And at one point, I remember thinking, well, that would be really good in organizations, but I think it was too on the extreme. And the same thing I saw with diversity. Diversity was just being boxed to the point that everybody, all it just felt like is more suppression, more suppression. You can't say this, you can't say that, because corporate jargon and seeing yourself inside, they don't match.
Yes.
And I landed up last year speaking to somebody, and they said, can you give a course on microaggression? And I was this was in a government section. I was like,
yes,
you want me to give a workshop on microaggression? Okay. And they were like, is there anything you can do about mindfulness? And I said, I'm not going to do anything about mindfulness, because I think it comes down to what you're saying. If I cannot get to the root of my anger, but you want me to change it fast, I'm going to keep being angry. And no matter how much you throw mindfulness or meditation to it, it's not a solution. It's a tool, as far as I'm concerned. It's just a tool.
It's a tool.
Having said, and putting all those things that are in an organization, if today speed is at its height, what are your key suggestions that you would say? It's like somebody who's listening to this and they would be like, okay, emotions, I don't like to work with it, or I want to work with my leadership style and on emotions. What would you suggest to them?
If you're uncomfortable saying the name emotion, talk about to the action. So
Explain.
If you're in a meeting, for instance, and you have seen a lot of eye rolling and, body language that you think is not appropriate for the great idea that you just presented, but you don't want to speak to the emotion. You don't want to say, hey, Lillian, I saw you rolling your eyes. Then talk to the action. You can ask, what will be discussed at a water cooler regarding this meeting after the meeting?
Do you still have water coolers over there? What?
Well, I mean, hey, water cooler, coffee machine, whatever is appropriate. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. That would be one question. What else?
If you are, and this one, I was just in a session with a couple of junior managers, and I asked them, we were talking about, hey, they need to coach their people. And I asked them, okay, what will you do if the urge comes up to kill one of your team members?
Okay. All right. Yep.
So, and see you laughing. Laughter is great, by the way.
Oh, I 100% agree. I'm like, hands up.
Because what happens when you speak to the action, and when you speak to the action, it's speaking to the outrageous. When you're asking people, okay, how will this meeting be discussed in WhatsApp after this meeting? Everybody will be like, because it's okay, we're acknowledging that this will happen. When I say, what do you do when you feel like killing your team member? We laugh, but yes, you've had vision of strangling them to death.
Yeah.
But that then opens the door to not name the emotion, but talk about what is triggering it. Without you having to have said. And again, to come back to, we don't need to beat the emotion to death. We want to come to the root cause of, okay, why? So if you're uncomfortable naming that, I would say talk to the action.
I like that one. Talk to the action. What about not taking it personal?
Not taking it personal is professional maturity. Not taking
professional maturity.
Yes.
I'm learning a lot of new jargon words here. My vocabulary is just okay. Professional maturity.
Not taking things personally in the corporate world is when you have learned that things are not about you.
I think things like this are obvious, isn't it?
No, no. Oftentimes we get to a position and we think that we are the position. It is about us. No, you're not in the position. You're temporarily on the seat, and not even with Gorilla Glue. Sorry. So
I need to start writing a whole list of new words that I'm learning today. You know,
yeah. I mean, and when you realize that, whatever a team member says to you, whatever anybody says to you, it just is. It isn't a reflection on me. Even if you're saying, Lillian, you effed up. Yes, in my position in the moment with whatever I was doing, with decision making I was taking, that's not, my effing up is not a definition of who I am. It's not the definition of me as a mother, as a wife, or friend, or whatever. Yeah. It's me effing up in the position that I am with the decision that I took in that moment. Yes, I F up on a daily basis, and then I course correct.
Is this why a lot of leaders, maybe it's a lot of female leaders in particular, I notice, when they leave their job, they still walk with that lens so much into their lives, they don't know how to be without it?
It's probably a part of it.
So they make it part of their, but then it goes against that thing where you say, okay, you leave your identity at the door, apparently, when you go into the professional. But then when you're in it, you then become it, to when you leave it, you don't know how to unbecome it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to take it personal then, isn't it?
If that's the way that you're doing it, yes, by all means.
So what's another way of doing it? Because wouldn't the reason why I say that is, wouldn't that help them when let's say you're coming in, you're giving them the suggestion, you're walking them through the whole change that is arriving. And like you said, change is constant.
Mm-hmm.
And that you don't want them to feel you're being too emotional, mm-hmm. but to now redefine that person, not taking it personal on either sides. Like, you can't leave it at the door, but you can't become it either. Mm-hmm. What would be the other way for them then?
That's where we do a lot of work on the leader themselves. How are they perceiving the change? What are the emotions that they are having regarding it? One of the things that early on in starting with formally with change management that I had as a base is, nobody can lead anybody through a change that they haven't accepted and assimilated themselves first.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great point.
Yeah. It sounds like basic, but it oftentimes doesn't happen. So then we come to, hey, okay, where are you? Are you okay? Are you comfortable? Because otherwise that will show up. And for some leaders, it's an easy work. It's just, hey, okay, relative to my position, I had some fears regarding my position, blah, blah, blah. And this is impacting my perception. And for other leaders, it goes a ways back. It goes to, hey, okay, I need therapy because there are things in my past that I haven't dealt with, but they are now showing up. I've been substituting my work persona because I want to get away from the person that I am, which has a couple of things to deal with. Yes, that I can't help you with, but oftentimes when we talk about it, then they realize that, hey, there is some unresolved work that I need to do there, because otherwise this will keep hitting me.
So now, what is your stance about the new coaching that's coming into change management?
Oh, I applaud it.
Yeah. But haven't you been really doing that all this time, though? As far as to me, whenever I speak to you, I feel like you're already doing it.
Yes, of course, because I don't know of any other way to assist my leaders, support them in doing this effectively without going there.
Yeah.
So yes, but what I applaud about it and why I'm a big fan is because when you have this becoming part of methodologies, becoming part of change plans, then you up the chance of having buy-in for it from your steering committees and from everybody involved. Then it's not the lonely Lillians having to sell it that, hey, we need to do this part because otherwise you run a risk of things not being effective. But then they're understanding the approach that the Lillians are taking because the methodology, the frameworks are now having it as an official part.
Okay, so going forward, because I know you work in the Netherlands, you work in the Caribbean, and so but those are also two very different cultures, styles of leadership as well.
Yes.
When you're working in such environments, what is the common ground that leaders could really sit back and walk away with today, if they had to walk away with something? What would you like them to know that would be such a big changer in its own self?
What are the unwritten rules in your organization?
What are your unwritten rules in the organization?
Yep.
How is that affected to the emotions?
That will give you clues and not clues. It will give you direct guidelines in what people are suppressing or not. So when you go to, okay, what are the unwritten rules? And basically it's what I do when I go into an organization. They will give me the articles of incorporation, the map and everything. And then I go to some key people and ask, okay, what are the key written rules? What can I do to not get in trouble in here? Mm-hmm. And then you will hear, okay, don't speak up if you're in a meeting with so-and-so. He doesn't like it. When you get the planning for each Monday, it's written in stone. Don't react to it. So you get all these clues, you get all this information that leads you to understand where people are going to be suppressing their emotions. Because if I'm in a leader with so-and-so and I'm irritated, oh no, this is the meeting where we don't say anything. I'm suppressing it.
And I think that's a damn good line. Getting to know the unwritten rules first. Mm-hmm. I'm going to keep it on that one. Lillian, I could talk to you for hours as always. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. It has been so wonderful. Like always, talking with you.
Same. Okay. So I got to ask you, what are your thoughts now of outsourcing your social intelligence? What are your thoughts around efficiency? Does faster really mean better? And how can we have a more mature relationship with our emotions in the most uncomfortable moments in our lives? How can we use it as a means of information? These are just some of the questions that I walked away with. And I would wonder, what are your thoughts and what did you take away from this week's episode? Hey, if you want to share it with me, I look forward to it. Just click and email it to me, or better yet, join my Substack. I have articles. I talk about the pause phrase cards that I'm coming out with, and I even dive a little deeper on what we spoke about after this episode. Hey, have a good one. Till the next one. Take care.